We hear several times in the Gospels how Jesus is thought to be trapped by questions that people bring to him, and this is probably his smartest answer to any of them. He is not being trapped in an unfair or unjust way most of the time. This is in fact the usual method of intellectual dispute and discussion, if you like. The Pharisees would have been used to doing this not just to their enemies but to their friends as well, seeing if they could catch them out in a clever piece of rhetoric or sophistry. We know that this, though, comes with malice, this question to Jesus, because it's not just the Pharisees who bring this question, but they're teaming up with the Herodians. And these are not people that you would expect to be the best of friends. The Pharisees are a Jewish religious group. They're sort of a political religious affiliation, and they do not enjoy being vassal to the Roman Empire, to being a people under occupation. The Herodians, on the other hand, are Herod's team, and Herod is a kind of puppet master of this particular region of the Roman Empire. He is their lapdog. They say jump and he says how high, and in return he gets power, or at least the pretense of power, though he has to answer to the empire. And they have caught Jesus here in the temple, and between the two of them they've come up with a question that they think is going to stump him. They start, of course, with flattery, because there's no better way to get somebody off their guard, and then they hit him with the question that they've been planning. They say to him, "Tell us, is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" And they think that they've got him stuck here, because if he says yes, then he'll be going against some of the theological teaching that he's given about allegiance and loyalty being paid only to God and not to the emperor. And actually, sort of more significantly than that, he'll also lose the popular vote. At the moment we're coming up to a time of election in this country, and there's no party that at some time in the past hasn't been above giving a tax break out just before an election cycle in an effort to buy a few votes. And what you certainly won't hear as elections get closer and closer is those who wish to be elected saying that they would like to hike taxes up. And so not only does Jesus perhaps go against his theological message of just paying loyalty to God and not to the emperor, but maybe even more importantly for him, he loses the popular vote if he tells everyone, yes, you should be paying lots of tax. On the other hand, if he says no, he pits himself in direct opposition to the Roman Empire. This is how they manage to keep the peace. They have all of these vassal states, and the cost of Roman peace is taxation. And it is dangerous to pit yourself against the Roman Empire, as Jesus will soon come to know, and as I'm sure he knows already by this point. But Jesus, as any good politician does, doesn't answer the question directly one way or the other. He says, "Show me the coin used for this tax." He hasn't got one in his pocket. He can't pull one out. Why? Because, as I said, this is set in the temple. And you remember from Jesus' actions later on in the Gospels that there are money changers when you get to the temple, and they're there because you shouldn't be bringing profane coins into the temple environs. You should be using Jewish shekels. The fact that the Pharisees can pull out of their pocket one of these coins of the empire is already a testimony against them. And he says, whose face and whose name is on this? And this is where the scriptures and archaeology collide, because we have access to some of these coins. They've got the second emperor on them, Tiberius, and they say underneath, Tiberius, son of the divine Augustus. It's his face, and he is claiming to be the son of God. Ring any bells for you? And so here is Jesus, son of God, facing off against Tiberius, son of God, the divine Augustine, his father, the first Roman emperor. Well, They tell him it's Caesar's head, and he says, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And on first view, this might sound like, sure, give the money that's got Caesar's head on it back to him, and then give to God the things that are God's. We might interpret this as being a message about giving our tithes, the first fruits of our crops and of our livestock. Or it might bring to mind the widow giving her mite in the temple. Maybe this is a message about a different kind of giving of our resources that is due to God. But if you follow the logic through, that's not quite what Jesus is getting at. There's a rather more beautiful solution. He asks them about the coin, whose head and whose name is this? And the answer is Caesar's, and the answer is, well, you give to Caesar the things that have got Caesar's face on them. And so in that case, where is God's face? And the answer is, believe it or not, just here. And there, and there, and there, and there, and there. We are the ones made in his image. And who carries his title? Right here. And there, and there, and there, and there, and there. Sons and daughters of God. You render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, the little bit of metal with his face on it, and you render to God the things that are God's, the things with his faces on them, me and you. And this evokes for me some of that funeral liturgy, that we bring nothing into the world and that we take nothing out. All of the bright and sparkling and captivating and beautiful things of this world, all of the shiny little coins, you can give them back to Caesar. But the things that are eternal, the person, the things that matter, these we are to render to God. Amen.